Welcome to Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy for you to meet the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and I am incredibly excited about the guest we have today. This is a man that I have wanted to interview from the very start of this show. If you looked up the definition of class in the dictionary, you'd see his picture. He is a devoted Christian, one of the most faithful men you'll ever meet. He is an incredible father, grandfather, great-grandfather. He's had 7 children, 25 grandchildren, and over 40 great-grandchildren. I think he's got 42 with 4 more on the way. Just a wonderful man. He's been a coach, a teacher, a businessman, you name it. He's one of the best known and most highly respected men in Ponchatoula. You've probably figured it out. It's Mr. Reggie Pevey. Mr. Reggie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I don't know if I can live up to all that.
Well, look, I cut it short. I could have said many more nice things. You are, without a doubt, one of my lifelong heroes. My dad would say the same thing. I mean, you were his coach when he was little. Our family just thinks the world of you, and so does the rest of Ponchatoula. So for the very few people out there that don't know you or know of you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was raised in Beaumont, Texas, in a little Catholic high school, St. Anthony's High School. Like it was so small, we had 9 boys and 36 girls in my graduating class.
Oh my God, that's smaller than your family.
And we had, and that was it. I graduated 45, and at 17, I went ahead and joined the Navy. And
well, thank you for your service. That's amazing.
I got stationed on the aircraft carrier, and so that made me a World War II veteran, which gave me an opportunity to go to college. Thank God. I don't think I'd have made it without that.
Let me say it again. Thank you for our service. You are America's greatest generation, and there are so few of you left. When I think of all the heroes I had growing up, off the air, you and I were talking about my adopted papa, Wink Vineyard. You know, he was a Navy veteran like you, a great man. Mr. Hollis Poche. The list goes on and on. So many Ponchatoula men and Americans across the country served us so well, but you're the one in front of us today, Mr. Reggie. Thank you for your service. You know, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't enjoy the freedoms we have today if not for you and your brothers in the arms. So thank you.
Well, I lucked up and got on an aircraft carrier and went over to Europe and England, Scotland, Sweden. Had a real nice time. I didn't have to do the fighting like Hollis Poche, who was my neighbor. He was my next door neighbor. I love
what Hollis. A hero he was. What a great man.
2 Purple Hearts.
Right.
Fantastic man. And,
but you'd never know it. He was as humble as the day is long. You know, you'd have to hear about it from friends like you because his grandson's been my lifelong best friends, the godfather of my oldest boy. And I never once heard Mr. Hollis, you know, boast about his service. And you know, you were similarly modest. I mean, y'all are the best of the best.
Yeah. He was fantastic. He and Billy Jacobs with his big buddy, and Billy was a paratrooper. So, but anyway, thank God that war is over, and we're still speaking English.
Absolutely, and thank God you made it home to make all those beautiful PV babies, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But you mentioned you enlisted at 17. That's truly heroic. When did you make it back home from the war?
It was 1947.
Okay.
1947.
Did you go back to Beaumont, or did you settle elsewhere?
No, I went to LSU.
Okay.
My mother and dad were living in Beaumont, but I went on into LSU, and thinking I was some great football player, I walked on for spring training.
Oh, cool! Fighting Tigers.
Found out I wasn't great, and they sent me to a junior college in Texas, and I played junior college ball.
Okay. And what position did you play, Mr. Reggie?
In.
Okay.
And anyway, after junior college, I came back to LSU, and I worked in the training room with Marty Broussard, learning how to take care of athletic injuries and stuff. And so, and with that led to, it just led to other things. And I was working for Texas company off the mouth of the river.
Okay.
And they on my off days, I called LSU and I said, God, I learned how to teach and coach I wanted a job. They said, well, there's an opening in Ponchatoula. And so I came here to Ponchatoula. I was talking to Mr. Willard Butler.
Uh-huh. A great man. Wow.
And was he a great guy? And
True legend.
he said, there's another guy who wants this job real bad. He said, Lou Patella. I didn't know Ponchatoula didn't like Italians.
Yeah, at the time, for sure.
They didn't want to. My mother was born in Sicily. I was more Italian. I was more Italian than he was. And
Seriously.
looked at me. He said, Patella's not going to work out, but you're going to work out fine. So he hired me. Thank God he hired me. That was God, it changed my whole life.
But you're right. That's something folks don't know about these days because there's so many Italians here. Heck, I'm married to a Sicilian myself, right?
Yeah.
But back in the day, I mean, my good friend Brent Montleon, when his dad, opened a furniture store, he had to change his name and tell folks, a different story, right? I mean, it was a different time. But so you got the job at Ponchatoula working for the legendary Willard Butler.
Butler.
And what an amazing principal he was. What was that like? Tell us what it was like coaching and teaching here in Ponchatoula.
That was beautiful. Buddy Boska was the head coach. AJ Boska was coaching junior varsity. And we had Eldridge Fletcher. He was helping us coach. Milton Levine helped us. Had some great people. We had a good ball club that year. I think we lost one ball game. And it was to Morgan City by 3 points. But it had a good season. Had fellows like Milton Hill.
Milton.
Robert Allen.
Mr. Milton, there's a joke in my family that Mr. Milton's my real dad because, as you know, my three brothers are all much taller than I am. And Milton Hill's a dear friend of my father's. And so he'd come by in the mornings to drink coffee with mom and dad. And sometimes I'd be laid up on the back couch and he'd say, "Wake up, son, you coming to work with daddy today." He's such a great guy. But yeah, what great squads. And I remember when I was in school and we go into the weight room or the athletic PE building, you'd have all these great photos from the old days when Ponchatoula would play in the Cypress Bowl. And you mentioned only having one loss. And, now Ponchatoula football has gotten good again, but there was a very long dry spell, literally decades without a district championship or playoff appearance. And it was hard to kind of know about those glory days. What was it like coaching in kind of that golden era? Or let me ask you, what would you attribute the success y'all had at that time? Because you just rattled off several legendary coaches of Ponchatoula, and you being one of them, obviously. But what was the secret to your success back then?
I don't know. Just the kids just wouldn't give up. They were fantastic. Like Jackie Vaughn and Mickey McLaurin and. I can still see Mickey catching the touchdown pass that beat Hammond 7-0.
Well, I'm so impressed you even remembered how many points you lost to Morgan City. I mean, that you can remember these scores after all these years. That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, well, the little brain's so empty up there.
I'm not buying that for a second. I do want to show one thing, Mr. Reggie, if you don't mind. We have the ability, folks, if you're watching live, to put your comments right here on the screen. So, Mr. Reggie, Miss Sue Gray chimes in here to say that you are an incredible person, Mr. Reggie. She talks about how you and her dad, Milton Levine, were teaching and coaching buddies, and you only got paid 9 months a year. It was a tough job, but y'all would take vacations and work odd jobs and tell great stories. I know you and I have talked before about the different variety of jobs that you'd have to do as a teacher back in the day, especially with a large family. We're going to get into a second about 7 kids and all these grandchildren that were to come. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did during the summers and what jobs you took and what that life was like? Yeah,
before I got married, during the summer, I ran the Kiwanis Park. The Kiwanis, they paid us something like $500 for the summer. And we taught
for a whole summer of work. Wow.
We taught swimming. We had softball. We had a baseball team, which your daddy played on.
Oh, and, yeah. Dad always talks about what a great coach you were. He's very proud that he was one of your players.
I was proud I had him. He was a great athlete. But I don't know. that's how we did it. And
Yeah.
I worked for Rayford Brothers on the weekend sometimes selling clothes.
That's the old store that was right there on Main Street.
Charles Rayford, yeah.
Okay. Well, you're sitting in the Rayford room here at my law office. Mr. Junior Rayford, this was, of course, their family home. And his children, Jerry Rayford, who worked with Daddy at the sheriff's office, and Cindy, who's now, I believe, in Tennessee. They were kind enough to sell me this building. So we named that big conference room that you're in after them. And last week we had Kevin Rayford as our special guest. Yeah. And you two are really kind of, similar fellows.
Yeah.
You're great family men. You're devoted Catholics. You're great coaches. You put this community and family first, and I really admire that. So would you mind sharing a little bit about your family? And what I'd like to do, go back to life in Beaumont. You mentioned you grew up in Texas. Your parents stayed there. You moved here. What was life like in Beaumont, Texas as a kid, 93 years ago?
God, Beaumont was just flat land. I can't remember. But we had a great school. We had St. Anthony. They had the Dominican nuns taught us. And I can remember going to the principal, and I told her, I said, Sister Bertrand, I don't want to take Latin. She said, you're going to take Latin. I said, why? She said, we're college prep. I said, well, I'm not going to go to college. She said, Mr. Pevey, you don't know what you're going to do. So I ended up with a master's degree.
Right.
But and then I had a football coach. God, he was Bricky Barley. He was fantastic, and I wanted to grow up to be just like Bricky. And I think that helped me push this athletic thing. And
do you find that when you did become a coach, do you think you were the same type of coach as Coach Bricky, or did you do things differently?
I wasn't as good.
You're too modest, Mr. Reggie. Nobody's buying that.
But anyway.
So you had great mentors from the beginning, in your nuns, your coaches.
Yeah. I love family. My religion is real close to me. I go to mass every morning. Go receive Jesus in the Eucharist, and I just love.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, and you remind me so much of my grandmothers who went to mass every day.
Oh, she did.
And I want to share this. I don't know if y'all can see this here, but you gave me this little rosary to share with my mom, who just thinks the world of you, and. Tell us about your faith, what it means to you, because I see that you pass that on to your own kids, to your grandkids. It's so important to the Peveys. Tell us about that. Where does that come from? Is it from Catholic school? Did you, get saved later in life? What's kind of your faith walk story?
My mother was a very devout Catholic, and my dad was Baptist and didn't go to church. But the greatest present I ever got in my life, for my graduation from high school, my daddy became a Catholic. And
oh, wow.
Oh, my God. He had been taking instructions on the side. And we didn't know it. And but Father Cody got in. And anyway, but other than that, I just love going to church. And we pray before every football game. I don't know, God is just, I couldn't live without Jesus. I really couldn't.
Of course. Yeah.
David asked me the other day, we was leaving church, he said, what you got to do today? I said, Jesus hadn't told me yet.
I love it.
If I walk out of the restaurant and he tells me to go left, I go left. If he said go right, I go right. But,
well, you've clearly raised your family in Christ. You mentioned your son, David. I mean, I know growing up in the St. Joseph community, we would see Peveys in every direction, volunteering in some aspect of the church, whether it was, working there, donating to the school, Eucharistic minister. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
Clearly this is something that is multi-generational. You mentioned your mother, her influence on you, your 7 children, heck, you got a daughter who owns a Christian bookstore. I mean, and not only in the way you live, but in your vocations, grandkids, great grandkids too. Yeah. Thank you for passing down those values, because it means a lot to our community, and we've all, prospered so much. If you don't mind, I would like Mr. Reggie to share a few more comments, because we're just flooded here with people saying nice things about you. So Wayne Ratcliffe thanks you for your service in the military. And Wayne, thank you for tuning in. I'm so glad you shared that. Miss Carolyn Wilson says, hey, Mr. Pevey. Speaking of your family, you got a daughter-in-law here. Miss Angela is so proud to call you her father-in-law. Miss Angela, thanks for tuning in. Miss Faye, you're such a sweetheart. And she says, Miss Faye says, you're such a fantastic man, Mr. Reggie. And it takes one to know one. Faye, you're a fantastic person, but you were definitely right. Miss Carolyn talks about you being her Perrin Junior High School PE teacher. I think. Did you teach there?
I never taught at Perrin.
I might misunderstand the comment there. Maybe
she probably got it mixed up. I was at Vineyard. I wasn't at
Perrin. Okay. Which is okay, close enough there. And Miss Allison LaPuma, who we all love, she says she loves you. You're a true Ponchatoula patriot, and that's so true. Jeremy Pelche, my old schoolmate from PHS, and everybody's favorite fire captain. He says you're a great guy. Of course, he's right. Joe Benson says, Mr. Reggie's the man. Okay, this is a story I've been dying to hear about your first date with your wife. Please tell us about that, because I know this is going to lead in a really fun direction. Thank you for the tip, Joe.
I was going to daily mass during Lent, and I was teaching her brother. Her brother was in one of my PE classes. And she saw me. She was up from nurses training. She was at Hotel Dieu.
Okay.
And she saw me, and she asked her brother who I was. And she said, that's one of my teachers. She said, I want to meet him. So we got a blind date and went to a school dance. And we talked about everything. Her life was just unfolded before me. She was a precious girl, I tell you. She was beautiful. And
absolutely.
So I took her home, and I said, tomorrow I'm going to New Orleans. Would you ride with me? And she said, yeah, I don't have anything to do. I'll ride with you. So that old road through Manchac, that was the fourth road to go. It was called. we got just about to the tracks by Cypress. And I said, what you doing for the next 35, 40 years? She said, why? I said, would you marry me?
What?
And she said,
wow.
She said, yes.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. And you're talking about on the way to New Orleans, right? You're not even talking about the drive back. So
no, it was on the way to New Orleans.
Wow.
So I got to
That's one heck of a first date, or first 24 hours.
I hadn't even kissed the girl.
Oh, that's amazing. What a success story.
She was a beautiful person. She was the mother of my 7 children, and she passed away 7 years ago, and we've been married 60 years.
Wow.
And she was, God, I got a picture in my wallet. You wouldn't believe that she was that old. She was beautiful up to the
She
time
was a beautiful woman. Yeah, the entirety of my life, for sure. She was, and just a sweetheart. And what a great stoat, folks. You know,
she was
60 years of marriage, 7 children, 25 grandchildren, and 42 and counting great grandchildren. And Mr. Reggie, who, he was smart enough to see it in the first day. And what's it nowadays? They have a song about that, Mr. Reggie. If you like it, then you better put a ring on it. Well, you did that right away.
She begged him out there to build a cemetery out at Roosevelt. That
was a great idea. Yeah,
she was amping, and
so glad they did that.
When she died, we buried her in the mausoleum at Ponchatoula. And so when they got the mausoleum built at Roosevelt, I transferred her from Ponchatoula to Roosevelt. Yeah. So she's at Roosevelt now, and just love that place. So peaceful. And
well, thank you for sharing that story.
Right next to her, waiting for me.
That's so great. Let me ask you this: to a young buck like me, who's only 8-10 years into marriage, you did it right. You did it 60 years, unquestionably a successful marriage, a wonderful love story. Yeah. What advice would you give to younger folks about how to navigate life and love and marriage and raising kids? You know more about this than anybody I know, and you've been better at it than anybody I know. What advice do you have to share?
It's better to love than to be right.
Great advice.
in a
That's
nutshell.
almost exactly what my daddy told me the night I got married. It's not so important to be right.
It's not important to be right. That's true. But I had to give up coaching because the kids started coming along, and I went to work. I went to work for Shell, and I worked at
Okay.
Narco up until they had that '62 strike. They laid off 119 of us. Of course, they went by the clock who they laid off. And I was making $10,000 a year there, which was good money back then, 62. The only job I could find was at Marpaw.
Okay.
Coaching basketball.
All right.
3,600 to teach and 300 to coach basketball. So I dropped almost $6,000 in my pay. I really didn't know how we were going to make it. But anyway, and then there was a little.
How'd you like it out there? Because we mentioned your player earlier, Eddie Layrisson. My dad, he followed in your footsteps out there for a brief time.
I coached there a couple of years. They were beautiful people. My God, the kids out there were. In fact, one of my ball players just died about 3 months ago, David P2.
Okay.
But it was just fantastic. But
well, it's a smaller school, right? Did it remind you any of your own school in Beaumont? I mean, I know it wasn't a Catholic school, but community size-wise, was it similar?
Yeah, we had 50 boys in high school at Marpaw.
Tough to put together a solid squad with only 50 boys to choose from.
30 of them played baseball, basketball. Wow. We didn't have any other sports. It was just basketball. Yeah. But it was fantastic. But we.
So how long were you out there in Marpaw?
I coached a couple of years, and I was out there about 4 more years teaching.
And then where did you go next?
I went to Martha Vineyard. That's when Winks went out there as principal. He asked me to come out there and teach PE.
Winks Vineyard, as you know, was kind of like an adoptive grandfather to me and my brothers. He was our next door neighbor. He was the principal at Vineyard. Yeah, and one of the finest men ever. Again, we mentioned earlier, like you, a World War II veteran. Yeah. Just a great man. And as I understand it, you were kind of his right-hand man out there, right? I mean, you guys
when he
ran
left,
a heck of a school.
But we had a good crew out there. I think we had 4 men teachers out there.
Okay.
We had pretty good control. And that's about the time of integration, and everything went smooth. We had a great.
Well, that was no small challenge. So that's a testament to how well y'all ran that school.
Yeah,
I know those were trying times.
It was perfect. It was perfect. Had a great time. But
well, while we're on the topic of Winks Vineyard and off air earlier, you mentioned Mr. AJ Bacher. Why don't you tell us about some of the folks that you worked with along the way? You mentioned several of the folks you coached with at Ponchatoula early in your career, but who made an impact on you at any of these places you've talked about? Who were your friends, your colleagues, the folks you respected, your mentors? Who comes to mind when we think about the good old days of teaching and coaching?
I don't know if you remember Eldridge Fletcher. Eldridge. He was quite a character. He ended up in Houma, and they named a vocational school after him in Houma.
Oh, so cool!
And his son was principal out there. He treated me real well when I first moved to Ponchatoula.
Fletcher family's a great one. There are lots of good Fletchers in town.
I drink coffee with one Leslie every morning.
Yeah, sure.
God has put some great people in my life. I tell you, I can't.
Amen.
If I don't go to heaven, it's my fault. He has put some beautiful people in my life.
I can't speak for the big man upstairs, Mr. Reggie, but I think we'd all agree you're on the right track. Just keep it up.
Thank you, Lord. But anyway, I don't know what else to tell you about myself.
Well, I got one more thing. Our good friend Cheney Phillips here, or Papa C as he's known in our family, he says that you and your wife taught real estate classes at Southeastern, and it was very interesting and informative. What can you tell us about that? Because I know you got into the real estate business, and like you said earlier, you're always working other jobs. And tell us about this class that you guys taught and what life was like at Southeastern.
Well, when I was at Marpaw trying to make a living for the kids, I was coming out of the post office one morning, and Miss Kate Levine, she was a real estate agent, a broker, and she said, "I need somebody to help me sell real estate." I said, "What do I do?" And so I studied the book, passed the test, and I worked with Miss Kate until 72. I was just an agent. And then in 72, I opened up my own office, and Arresta quit nursing and came into business with me. And so we had Pevey Realtors from, say,
so you and Miss Arresta founded the business, and then is this the same business that David had? Or
we sold we sold to David.
You sold to your son, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a multi-generational business. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And Paul was working with us at first, and then we listed the restaurant next door. Mr. Richardson owned the restaurant, and he listed it with us, and Paul walked by. He walked back to my office and said, "Daddy," Paul was 20 years old.
20 years old was when Paul's Cafe started?
He said, "Daddy, would you think I can run that restaurant?" I said, "Hell, Mr. Richardson is." So all I did was go to the bank with him, and I co-signed. I didn't put up a nickel. And Paul,
but you took all the risk. For folks out there that don't know anything about co-signing, it's a true show of love, because you may not have to pay up front, but you got to pay on the back end if it doesn't work out. So,
but he did a great job with it. And like I say, he's had it over 40 years now. So
yeah, and now Becky does such a great job with it. I mean, she's a princess. She's the best, isn't she? I mean, she is pure Ponchatoula. I saw that the Honeycomb Realtors had done, speaking of real estate, they had done a nice write-up about her on the internet here on Facebook a few weeks ago, and it just got me to thinking, Becky is 100% Ponchatoula. She's everything that we should be proud of around here. And of course, she's not alone. So many members of your family are like that. Speaking of that, I see your beautiful daughter, Diane, commenting here. Real estate made up the difference. Remembers the story well. Diane, good to see you watching your dad. Another PV entrepreneur. I mean, you guys kind of spit off businessmen and women in every direction. Your son, John, owns his own business. I mean, we're talking about a lot of, entrepreneurial types, American dream types, Christian oriented businesses. And it's not just you. You mentioned Miss Arresta, after nursing, got in there with you and did it too. Where does that come from? Do you come from a family of entrepreneurs, or is it something that you just did out of necessity because they paid you so little in teaching and coaching? Or what's the deal there?
No, my dad he was an ice cream maker. He made ice cream for.
Oh, cool.
And but other than God, we didn't have anybody. But we had the kid like David's got his own business. He built. I think he's ready to retire now. He's building. I think his last house he's building is for his daughter Taylor out on Roosevelt Road. Beautiful home. Of course, Dennis is my baby.
Your baby's chief deputy for the whole parish. She's done really well in the public sector. So you guys are doing a lot of great things. And of course, we mentioned John. John's business has been incredibly successful.
Yeah, he's trying to sell. John's trying to sell. But I kid Dennis all the time. I said, "Dennis, you're the baby, but if you'd have been born first, I wouldn't have had but one. I couldn't have had any more."
That sounds remarkably similar to what my dad tells our chief of police about child rearing, his third son.
but he comes. Dennis will come back and say, "Yeah, Daddy, once you get perfection, you quit." So
that's a good line.
Kids.
That's a good line. Well, speaking of kids, we had a fella on here last week talking about his kids, Kevin Rayford. Kevin, thank you for chiming in. Mr. Reggie and I were talking about you off air, and you're kind of the modern day next generation Reggie Pevey type out there, coaching, working, raising kids, serving our community and church and everything, and doing well. So it means a lot that you checked in with us again, Kevin. I really enjoyed our interview last week. It was heartfelt. Jerry Abear says, Mr. Reggie, you are his idol, and he and Sheila love you. Stan Kitchen says that your wife was a wonderful person, and of course we agree. Kathy Marie says, what a sweet story. Thank you for chiming in, Kathy. And Allison LaPuma's getting a good laugh out of your story about Dennis Pevey there, Mr. Reggie. You got some fans on that.
Oh, boy.
Well, we're talking about life and business and, coaching and family. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, raising children? Because, we're talking about your kids individually some, and really talking about them as adults when they become successful, chiefs and business owners and you name it. But what was it like raising 7 kids? And what advice would you give to folks that are, trying to raise kids now, especially folks trying to raise big families?
I have to give credit to my wife, Aresta. She raised. I was out, had so many jobs. It was hard, to be with them all the time. But
right,
she was a sweetheart. She taught them how to respect people. I can remember I was reading. She used to write little articles, and one of them she said she got the kids all dressed up, and they said, "We're going somewhere, Mama." Said, "No, I want you to look good when Daddy's coming home from work." I mean, she was just a beautiful person, and
inside and out. Absolutely.
Oh God, she loved those kids, and I think all that rubbed off on them because
sure,
they've all been very successful,
and they're great parents too.
Yeah.
I've been had the benefit of seeing several of your children raise kids, either close to my own age and going through St. Joseph with them, or sometimes I would coach some of your grandkids and see how they were doing. And it's just they learn from you and your wife, right. And whatever Mr. Aresta was teaching them, it passed on, and now you see it in the next generation. All these great PVs of the third generation of Ponchatoula raising kids. Now, I think you told me off the air you have 42 grandkids. Is that right?
I think we're 42 and we're waiting for 4 more.
So 4 pregnant right now at the same time. How cool is that?
There might be 5 pregnant by now.
Well, I'm impressed. I mean, again, you remember losing to Morgan City by 3 points, 50 plus years ago. And you're keeping track not only of your own grandkids, but great grandkids and those on the way. That's impressive.
Thank you. Aresta, she loves to travel. She took me to Lourdes, to Fatima. God, we were in Medjugorje one time.
Tell us about that.
We were going back to the house in Medjugorje, and I looked up, and the sun looked like it was going to fall out of the sky. It was pulsating.
What?
I said, "Honey, look at the sun." She said, "It'll hurt my eyes." I said, "Look at the sun." And it was amazing. I can't understand it, but it happened.
That's cool. That's cool. So tell us about the places you went. I mean, you just mentioned a few.
Oh God, Rome, Fatima, Lourdes.
Wow.
Turkey. We went to about 4 years before she passed away. She rented an apartment 3 blocks from the Vatican, and we stayed 2 weeks.
Oh, how cool is that?
It was so.
I'm going to tell you, I only got to stay a few hours at the Vatican, but my mind is still blown. It was one of the best experiences of my life. What was it like to have that kind of access on an extended basis? Were you able to go to Mass there a bit? Or
went to Mass every day. It was beautiful. Went to different churches. And then we bought a motorhome, and we traveled. Oh God, we traveled in that motorhome all over the country. In fact, one time we drove to Alaska.
Did you go to Oregon? Because Diane says you spent many summers in Oregon. Tell us about that.
Every summer we spent in Oregon. They had the best weather, and my daughter was there, and then we, like I said, we left.
What parts of Oregon? Were you near the coast or inland, or what? Where were you?
A little town called Lake Oswego. It's just out of Portland. Now, you got to take Portland out of the picture if you want to say Oregon's beautiful.
Right.
Everything but, in fact, I understand the Idaho line's going to be going toward, and they're going to leave Portland out. But anyway, it was beautiful. But that trip we took to Alaska, oh God, I'll never forget that trip. We drove.
Was this with the family or just you and Miss Aresta?
Just my wife and I.
Oh, wow. Nice romantic trip. When did y'all do that?
Oh, gosh.
You know, and look, I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm not asking for the exact year, but I'm just curious. Was it something y'all did late in life, or?
Oh no, it was before we got rid of the motorhome. So
okay,
probably about 15 years ago, so maybe 20 years.
That's neat. That's neat.
So, but
Alaska's on my bucket list. I'll tell you. You mentioned Oregon. The Oregon coast is probably the most beautiful place I've been. Driving that. When Clay Daigle graduated from Stanford, his cousin Will Richardson, my best friend, and I went and met him in Seattle, and we drove down that coastline and Highway 1, and we're just blown away. But to think that you got to hang out in a motorhome and stop in the prettiest places you'd see and do it every summer, that must have been really special, huh?
We spent a lot of time on the coast, and we spent a lot of time up on Mount.
In the mountains.
Oh God, Timberline Lodge.
What about the Redwood Forest?
Mount
Did you
Hood.
get into the Redwood Forest any?
We went through the Redwood Forest. In fact, my son-in-law's father was like an arborist.
Okay.
And we went through with him, and he was explaining all kinds of stuff about the way things grow. My son-in-law was in the timber, that kind of business. He was an arborist.
You know what I learned about that? I had a fraternity brother at Tulane from Oregon who went back there to become one of these forest firefighters, you know?
Oh, man.
One of these guys that jumps out of the plane or the helicopter or whatever. He was the toughest guy in our frat, this lacrosse guy. His nickname was Tex. I don't know how that could happen. He wasn't from Beaumont like you, Mr. Reggie. He was from the deep woods of Oregon. But, man, I know you have firefighters in your own family. Paul's maybe the most famous firefighter in Ponchatoula for his heroics over the years. And, you know, it's you know, supercharged wherever you go. I mean, these are the bravest, best, and brightest types. But, man, these guys up there in the forest, they do it different, man. It's a whole new thing. So I bet your in-laws in the timber industry have some stories, because when you look at the news, it seems like these fires are happening all the time.
Oh, God, they do happen. Never been involved in one, thank God.
Thank God. Oh, I got another comment here I got to post for you, Mr. Reggie. Debbie Vining Ritter says she's so sorry to join late, but she's so happy to see you impart wisdom from the generation that taught community service and love of family, everyone. So, Miss Debbie, thank you for tuning in and sharing that with Mr. Reggie. Couldn't agree more. He's sharing so much wisdom with us. Mr. Reggie, what are some lessons you learned along the way in your travels? You know, I mean, did you have any scary experiences out on the road that you learned from? You mentioned you mentioned going to places of actual miracles, but then you see this miraculous stuff going with the sun and all. You know, what takeaways did you take from your travels? What lessons did you learn along the way that you might want to share with our viewers?
The only time I really feared, my brakes went out, and I was getting off at this exit, and I finally got it slowed down enough to pull into this station, and I didn't know what was going on, but this guy pulled up alongside of me in a car, and he said, "What's the problem?" I said, "Well, my brakes went out." He said, "Well, it's probably brake fluid." And I said, "Well, I don't know where that is." He said, "Oh, it's up underneath that left fender." I said, "How you?" So we put brake fluid in, and it worked. Did God send this guy to me?
Right. You sound like me. Dad always picks on us about having 4 sons. None of us know how to change a spark plug. We have no idea mechanically. But at least for me, it sounds like you too. God puts the right people in your life at the right time, so that they kind of fill in the gaps in whatever you might not know.
Oh yeah,
that's a God thing.
I don't know if I mentioned Milton Levine. He was a good friend of mine. In fact, he helped us coach. And when I was at LSU, my last year, LSU was playing Southeastern. And Milton, I didn't know Milton at the time, because I didn't even know Ponchatoula at the time, but Milton scored a touchdown against LSU.
Really?
And,
come on.
Coach Tinsley took the whole defensive team off and put them in the end zone and made them practice the whole fourth quarter.
Come on.
It was so.
Well, that's neat. I think Mr. Milton's daughter, Sue Grace, watching. So that's neat for her to hear that. I know she says you and Mr. Milton had a ton of great stories over the years. And I think y'all used to vacation together too, didn't you?
We vacationed together. We was in Amway together.
Uh-huh.
I didn't make any money on Amway, but he did.
It's always the guy above you in the pyramid that does a little better, right?
Oh gosh.
Well, when you look back on this rich, just compelling life you've lived with an incredible wife, these great children and grandchildren, you mentioned earlier your gratitude toward God and how, everything you have comes from him. What are some other thoughts, some feelings? I mean, what comes to mind when you think about the great life you've lived and the next chapter? Because you still got a lot of fight in you. Okay, 93 years young.
Yeah.
You rattled right up the stairs at my office on your way up here. You're doing great.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think you have in store, and how are you going to put this wealth of knowledge to use in the years to come?
I don't know. I guess the hearing aid to help me hear, and the cane to help me walk, and the glasses to help me see. I guess I'll make it. I don't know.
Yeah, you're the bionic man, the $7 million man in Ponchatoula, right?
Oh, but anyway, whatever God sends, just accept it. Accept it as I'm healthy as a horse. I take one little pill.
That's amazing.
Blood pressure pill, and why, Jesus? I don't know why, but anyway, I do what I got to do. I stay busy with my little rosary bracelets.
Well, and you do such a great job with these. And folks, I'm going to share this again. Just incredible work. Tell us about this. You grew this in your own yard, right? Are these Job's tears from you? Can you tell us about your craftsmanship?
Job tears. When we were in Turkey, there was a fellow with us by the name of Ross, and he told us about his daddy who was in a nursing home in Denham Springs. So Lewis we'd go visit him. So we used to go visit him all the time, and he had these Job tears planted outside his little window at the nursing home. And he made a rosary. He was 102, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And he made this rosary out of Job tears and gave it to a wrestler. And I said, well, you're not going to make me one? He said, yeah, I'll make you one. So he made me one. And so I use it every morning. 6:30, they have the Holy Land Rosary on the EWT, and I watch it every morning. And so I use this little rosary every morning. It's Job tears. He's fantastic, man. He passed away a few years ago.
Well, how long does it take you to make one of these, Mr. Reggie?
Oh, those little ones, it don't take 10 minutes.
And you make the little ones and the big ones too? You make a full rosary also with them?
Yeah, I think I gave you one full.
Yeah, yes, sir.
I mean, the bracelet. I haven't made a regular rosary in quite a while. See, when the nuns left Rosaryville, they had a lot of rosary stuff, and Suzette and them knew I did that, and so they gave me all those beads and stuff that the nuns had left, and so I use a lot of their
Very
materials.
Cool.
So
now it sounds like the nuns at your school in Texas had a big impact on you when you were a kid.
Oh God, they were fantastic. Hey, Sister Bertrand, I tell you, she was the boys' coach. She was the boys' leader. Man, we just loved her to death.
Yeah,
we used to.
I remember well when they left St. Joseph. I was a kid, I don't know, maybe third, fourth grade, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And you just worry about the status of Catholic education moving forward without them in the mix. We were blessed. They passed the torch to a wonderful woman in Miss Meisner. She did an incredible job.
Yeah.
And still one of my heroes to this day. So no slight to her and all the wonderful folks that followed, but it's a different animal now when you don't have nuns in the schools. So what are your thoughts on that?
It is, but they're good people, good lay people that's doing
Yeah,
a good.
for sure.
They're doing a good job.
For
I
sure.
watch these kids at St. Joseph, and they come daily mass every now and then, and they are fantastic little kids. They're well behaved, and
Yeah.
teachers do a great job with them.
Well, my oldest starts there next year. He's so excited that he's been accepted, so he's in the SJS Crusader soon, and he's so excited to go over there for kindergarten. Well, Mr. Reggie, it has been so great. I promised I wouldn't keep you that long today. I think I told you 45 minutes, and I'd have you out of here. You knew better than to trust a lawyer. It's 45 minutes and 38 seconds by my count. But before you go, I want to ask you a final question, and that's just, is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers? Anything on your heart, on your mind, just anything at all you'd like to talk about while you have the mic?
I just hope that the people I meet, I can influence them enough to get closer to Jesus, because heaven's just waiting for us. It's
Amen. And
that's all there is. That's all there is left. God, if you
it's
don't have
such
that,
an
you don't
important
have
message
nothing.
to close on, Mr. Reggie. And I just pulled up a quote. We mentioned Becky Pevey Smith earlier in the show. And here she says, "Thank you for sharing Papa's story with our community. Jesus shines through you, Mr. Reggie, every day," she says. And it's so true. I don't care whether you've met Mr. Reggie for 5 minutes or whether you've known him for 50 years. When you talk to Mr. Reggie, you're going to leave with a smile. Your spirit, your heart is going to be in a better place. You are going to be moving closer to God because he's constantly out there in ministry, whether he's passing a rosary to you or just talking about the importance of faith in his life or whatever. So Reggie Pevey, I want to give you thanks, Mr. Reggie, on so many levels personally. You are an exemplar of what a man should be as a father, as a husband, as a coach, as a teacher, as a Christian, you name it. We all do look up to you, and for good reason. You've done it right for so long. And thank you for sharing so much of your 93 years with Ponchatoula. You could have moved anywhere in the world. When you came back from the war, you didn't grow up here. You were smart enough once you met your wife to stick around her and ride it out here. But I want to thank you.
That was the greatest thing when I met Augusta. That was it.
I'm glad you know it. I'd say the same thing about my wife, Brandy, and it's so neat to see. 60-year success story. One more quote that popped up here at the last minute. Lester Leroy Satoon says that you are his hero and he loves you. And we could sit here, Mr. Reggie, for an hour or two more, and I have no doubt we would get dozens more comments like that. So once again, thank you, sir, for your service to the country, for your service to the community, for your friendship, your support. You're just one of the most positive, uplifting, and encouraging guys I've ever met. And it's been a real honor to sit here and talk to you for the last 45 minutes. And to our community, thank you for listening in. It's really a pleasure. We will be back here next week. It's back to our 5 o'clock time slot with Heather Lowry. But there you have it, Ponchatoula Live with Mr. Reggie Pevey.